Welcome back to the latest edition of Until Saturday, Rivalry Week Edition. I'm Ari Wasserman, joined by Dave Ubben. We don't have a guest this week. We are lone wolves, and that's not a joke at all. We are going to try our best to get through 10 games here this week. It's obviously Thanksgiving week, and first, let me wish everybody a happy holiday. I hope that everybody gets to spend time with the people that matter to them the most and have a filling and enjoyable day. It's my favorite holiday of the year, Dave. I don't know where it ranks
it's up there. It's up there for me.
Yeah, overeating and laying and watching football is a pretty good combination for the Ari Wasserman book. But yeah, I just want to say that to everybody who's listening and watching. We are going to get through a pretty jam-packed episode. We have the game, Ohio State, Michigan, which is probably maybe one of the most anticipated Ohio State-Michigan games in the history of that rivalry. We have the Iron Bowl, we have Civil War, we have Apple Cup, we have more rivalry picks. We have everything to get through, and we're going to try to give everybody a nice, thorough look at all those games. Be sure to follow the podcast on Apple wherever you listen to your podcast and drop us a 5-star review. Share it, interact with it. Anything you can do to make that podcast feed continue to grow would be greatly appreciated. And also, if you're not watching on YouTube live right now, subscribe to the YouTube channel and be sure to join us live Tuesday night after the college football playoff reveal, Thursday for our pick show, Saturday for our live reaction to the games, and then Sunday for our Sunday Sound Off episode that you can participate in. That is live on YouTube and will certainly be in your podcast feeds too. But we encourage you guys to subscribe to both, and the links to both can be found in both shows' profiles, descriptions. If you want to take part in the Sunday Sound Off show, be sure to leave a voicemail at this Until Saturday phone line. That is 316-462-9852. Again, that is 316-462-9852. We will play your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, insults, whatever you have to say. We will play it on the show. Sign up for the Until Saturday newsletter where you get your daily fill of college football news right to your inbox from The Athletic. And also be sure to subscribe to The Athletic. You know, I don't think we do enough promotion to the actual website that we write for, but this is the time to do it. It's the Black Friday $1 a month for 12 months sale. You can visit theathletic.com/Saturday. And the deal is good through November 27th. If you want The Athletic, thinking about trying it out, $1 a month is a steal. And most people who sign up under that deal tend to stick around long term because I do believe in the quality of the product and the vast number of writers that we have covering all the sports that you care about, not just college football. And as we move on into the show, just remember that every line, every gambling spread that we present to you will be by BetMGM. Thank you so much for that sponsorship. It means a lot to us and certainly a great resource to anybody who wants to read how the games are going to go. Okay, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to tease people a little bit. We're not going to start with Ohio State, Michigan. And frankly speaking, we're doing the pick show 2 days early because of Thanksgiving, and I still need some time to let those thoughts permeate. How are you doing today, by the way? You haven't said a word. It's 3 minutes into this thing.
I'm good. I thought we should have done this show Thursday at 1 p.m., keep our normal time slot. I don't know why we moved it, but I'm feeling good. And the internet's foremost anti-Ohio State podcast continues on by making people wait for our discussion of the game. So
yeah, I think by the end of the show, I got to ask you what your favorite Thanksgiving sides are, and if it's gizzards or something, then it'll be something weird, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it would just be a macaroni.
I'll keep it brief. It's a sweet. I'm a sweet potato casserole guy.
Okay, that's at least it's not weird. Okay,
yeah.
Like last year, we had cottage cheese pop up on the show.
Yeah, that still was unbelievable, and the comeback story of Scott showing that they served cottage cheese in the Iowa press box was
But he cheated.
Gasped.
He cheated because I guess Iowa has a salad bar, and he went to the salad bar and added the cottage cheese to his plate. I don't think that was a Thanksgiving staple. I'm never going to believe that was the case.
Shout out to Iowa. I got to tell you, in the world full of pointless things, a salad bar in a college football press box has got to be top 5.
Yeah. It's like Ruby Tuesday up there.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to do something in between all the punts. Okay, yeah. Let's start off with a game that is near and dear to both of our hearts. And we're going to play musical chairs here, Cam, so keep up with us.
Yes.
But your preseason Big 12 champion versus my preseason Big 10 champion. Texas, it says at Texas Tech. I believe they're at home.
Yeah, we're in Austin. We're in
10-1, 7-1 in the Big 12. Texas is laying 12.5 points, and Texas Tech is coming into town. We are 1 win away from Texas making appearance in Dallas in the Big 12 championship game. I think before the season started, we circled this game as a game that we think could cause Texas some issues, even if they were having a good year. We are here now. Dave,
yeah.
Do you think Texas gets tripped up here, or are you ready to trust them
No.
with your heart and soul?
Texas Tech is not a good football team. Now, I will say you get the right combination of forfeits and injuries and transfers, and Texas Tech is still in the Big 12 title hunt, so they still have a lot to play for here, obviously. But no, I was surprised to see Tyler Shuck transfer.
With the Big 12 tiebreaker rules, you got to be careful that people don't pick up your sarcasm, because that is I don't know what's more coherent, the Big 12 tiebreaker rules or Connor Stalions'
We'll get used to it. You can make fun
terrifying.
of the Big 12 here, but as we're killing divisions and you have an 18-team Big 10 and a 16-team SEC, obviously you're not playing round robin. Dumb tiebreakers, Ari. I'm gonna have to spend the off season educating myself on all these tiebreakers, because
I still don't get the Big 12s.
I don't either.
I read the form. I don't understand what they're saying.
It's very confusing, and this is just going to be the sport for a while, and I already hate it because I just hate this stuff. But it's going to be integral, and it's going to decide a lot.
It's kind of funny, Dave, that in a world where we are shifting towards a 12-team playoff to reduce discourse of who plays into the national championship game, that weird tiebreakers at the conference level could keep viable options out of the championship game, and that could have an impact on automatic bids into the freaking tournament. It's insane to me.
It could put viable candidates into the playoff. I think as far as that part of the conversation, I think it will all come out in the wash.
But I think there will be arguments about it, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
It'll be crazy.
I'm pre-annoyed and pre-angry at the tiebreakers, because until this week, I hadn't really thought about the fact that with divisions, it's never mattered all that much, because you do play a round robin, and every now and then you get kind of a weird one. Obviously, the most famous example, I think, would be the Big 12 South in 2008, where they had the weird tiebreaker, ended up changing the rules. The Texas-Oklahoma situation.
They also, during COVID, changed the Big 10 East's rule. That's maybe not the same thing.
Yeah.
But they put Ohio State into the Big 10 championship game over Indiana because of game cancellations and stuff. So it is strange.
Yeah.
If you want to try to read this, I'm not going to go through it again. I was listening back to our podcast, Dave, where I tried to read it. I was like, I don't know.
You lost me 30% through.
But I think part of the reason why I read it that way is because I wanted people to feel how overwhelming it is to read the document. And I think I succeeded in that. But that said, do you think that Texas is finally going to assert their dominance and just blow a team out and cover the spread? Yes. Or do you think it's going to be another one of these, 3-point games in the third quarter that Texas ekes out?
How many times do you think Texas's roster has seen Joey McGuire's post-game speech this week? Because I'd bet that it's quite a few times. The idea that
I hear that stuff every week, man. Everybody.
No. You don't hear the head coach of the team that you're about to play telling his team, I told you they were going to break, and they did. You don't hear that every week, Ari. I don't care who you are. If you're Texas, if you're anybody that gets everybody's best shot. And I think that's motivating. I don't think it matters that much. Texas is a much better team. Texas Tech is in a bad place right now. They've been unimpressive all season long. They've had a ton of quarterback injuries. Like I mentioned before, Tyler Shuck's off to the transfer portal. Kind of a surprising move to me, but
timing-wise anyway.
Yeah, it was just weird overall. But no, I think Texas handles this easily. I think they cover. Texas, when they play average Texas Tech teams in Austin, I'd like to see the history on this. Usually it's a boss-up situation, and I think Texas is done messing around. And they didn't play very well against Iowa State last week, a sort of underrated, overrated Iowa State team that's in had another weird season.
I think they're properly rated because they're just weird.
Yeah, you lose all these guys with the gambling pro, but then you're winning games, but then you haven't really beat anybody, and you haven't really been that competitive against the best teams, but you're still headed to a bowl, and everyone thought you were going to be terrible. I still don't know what to make of Iowa State, 11 games in. But that's impressive to not play well and win and cover at night on the road against a competent team. I think
that
Texas
was highly motivated too.
Yes, very much so. So I think Texas wins this big.
Okay, let's stick with the playoff teams. I don't know if you read my column that ran today.
I haven't read it yet.
The headline was college football playoff chaos scenarios that will force me to change my position on the expansion discussion. And the number one disaster scenario, I think, is if it comes down to a fourth spot where Alabama and Texas are directly compared to one another, and then a committee just making a decision for us rather than if there are viable options at the end of the road here that are left out. That is disgusting to me, and it's never happened before, and I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but this is the furthest we've gotten into the season, Dave, with 5 unbeaten teams in the playoff era. And
Ari, I don't think I asked you this on the previous show. If it came down to it and you were on the committee, who would be your number 4 and who would be your number 5 in that situation?
Texas.
Okay. Both are defensible. Both are enraging. It is what
I can't sit here and yell into a microphone for 2 years about how important the regular season is and then dismiss the result.
I wasn't going to say it. I'm glad you said it.
But that said, in my heart, I think that Alabama would be the team that should go.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's hard. Like, I would have to pick Texas because I think they earned it.
Well,
but then I also understand that maybe if Texas played Alabama tomorrow, it might go different. Like
it's the same column that I wrote last year, Ari, after the committee rightfully excluded Alabama and included TCU. And I basically, TCU fans got mad at me, but I wrote, the committee did not put the 4 best teams in the playoff, and that's fine. And the thesis of the story is basically like, at some point, the results have to matter.
Yeah.
Nothing that Nick Saban said on Saturday night, that when he was making his media rounds, talking about betting trends and all this stuff, nothing he said was wrong. Alabama was a much better team than TCU last year, but the results have to matter. Yeah. And I think you're right. I would,
and they have mattered a lot. I covered Ohio State teams with 1 loss that didn't get in because they lost the only game they couldn't lose. And I can't sit here and act like the regular season is the playoff and then pretend and then pick the team that lost the playoff game to go over the team that beat them. It just wouldn't make any sense. So, it has to matter. And
they lost it at home by double digits. It should be.
And the sad thing is, Dave, I think if we get put in that situation, it won't matter, which is the reason why the 12 team I have to change my mind, because if the season's not going to matter, then what are we protecting? Like, that's the whole.
I think you're right, Ari. I think it will be Alabama if it comes down to those 2. I think it will be Alabama. Just like the tiebreakers next year, I'm pre-angry about it because beating Georgia is going to be enough to get them over the hump. They're 1 spot behind Texas.
But it's a nice aside to go into our next game in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
Oregon State, coming off of a tough loss against Washington at home, on the road at Oregon, number 6, big rivalry game. Oregon's 10-1, 7-1, and people are starting to grumble a little bit about Oregon's placement in the rankings based on their schedule and resume. And I don't know if I'm at that point yet, but I
don't care. They win this game, they win Washington, it doesn't matter.
No, I know, but does Oregon earn back some respect on Saturday, or do you think this is like the first domino that falls that eliminates the Pac-12 from playoff contention?
No, I don't think Oregon's losing this game at home. They're in a weird spot because this week we got news that the Apple Cup, was it 5 or 7 years? I
think it was 5.
5 years. I think this game will probably continue on. John Wilner, who has his finger on the pulse of just about anybody in the Pac-12, I think he put it at 99% that this game continues on. Maybe there's a 1-year interruption. We will see. I think Oregon State and Washington State are in a fascinating spot schedule-wise that we still don't know who they're going to play next year. But ultimately, Oregon's just a really good team, and I think they win this game, but that's a lot of points. It started the week at 14.5, moved to 13.5. It's interesting they crossed a key number that easily. But Oregon State's too good to get punked this hard. They can control the line of scrimmage. They won't control it in this game, but they'll be good enough to put some points on the board, slow Oregon down a little bit. I think the under is an interesting play here, but give me Oregon State.
Here's the question with Oregon
here.
Do they have a obvious and identifiable weakness on this football team?
No, that's why I like Oregon. Their best asset is their vertical passing game, and the fact that they have a quarterback that I haven't seen him make. I mean, since he's left Auburn, you could count the number of bad mistakes or bad decisions he's made on like one hand. That's their biggest asset. But you look around and they're physical, they cover. They're good on the line of scrimmage. They have good speed. Bucky Irving is fantastic. Like, they can rush the pass.
You have to
slow down the run game. It's wild.
The fact that you didn't say this person's name is a perfect segue to the point I want to make. I think Troy Franklin
Yeah.
is one of the most underrated players in the entire sport. I don't think people talk about him. I know Rome Odunze is good, Marvin's good,
yeah.
Keon Coleman's good. Like, there's a lot of really good. Why are you
Can I say this? I'm not a hater
about this.
I'm not
it
a hater.
Sounds like it. The guy's
I'm not a
awesome.
hater. He's very good. He's very fast. But when I watch him play, for me, it looks like, oh, he got schemed open. It's not like you're mossing people left and right, or you're this incredible route runner. He's very fast. He's very good. But when I watch him, I don't come away thinking like, oh, this guy's incredible. I think, man, that was great route design. When you get him in a one-on-one, he's really tough to cover.
So he hasn't had enough not quite the same. Highlights for you?
More or less. I mean, I'm not saying
catches
he's not
and
good,
traffic
like,
highlights.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like, he's a great player. One of the best receivers. He made the Blitnikoff semifinalist list this week. I was
68
very much
receptions,
in favor of that.
1,221 yards and 13 touchdowns.
Great season, great player. But I don't know that he's on the same level as like Odunze and Harrison and Neighbors and these guys that just like, oh my gosh. So
where you can't do anything to stop them.
Yeah, basically. That's where I'm at with Troy Franklin.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never stopped to think about it that way, but I'm going to watch it closer now and try to dunk on you in a further show.
I've watched a lot of Oregon this year.
I think Oregon's going to kick the crap out of Oregon State. I think people are falling into the trap of last year's game, and I think that Oregon is just got an answer for everything that Oregon State. I think Oregon is better than Washington, and Washington, I thought, even though it got a little bit scary there for them at the end, was a clear and better team. This one's on the road. It's a rivalry game. Oregon's mad that I think that Oregon is going to win the Pac-12 and make the playoff. So I think they're going to cover this number. And I actually might venture to say that they might cover the original number, which would be by 3 scores instead of the 2 here that are 13.5 is. So yeah, I'm a big Oregon Duck Kool-Aid drinker, and we'll see what happens here.
We've been sipping on it. I've been over here already
listen. I am September. Covering the Pac-12 championship game in Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. And I hope that it's 1-loss Oregon versus Washington, undefeated.
Me too. I can't
need that. I think it's the perfect send-off to the conference to finally get to a position where you have a play-in game to the playoff.
Yeah.
And hopefully it matters that way. And I think that you have 2 teams that are worthy of going. So that'll be fun.
I don't want to see Oregon lose this game and have the disaster scenario on the table for the Pac-12, where they've been, in my mind, some of the second class of the Pac-12 has kind of slipped a little bit. Like Washington State has not looked good. Colorado has fallen off a little bit. But the Pac-12 has been as good as any conference. I don't know about the conference, or you can make a case of the best conference in the league. In the country. I don't want to see them be excluded from the playoff with all these quarterbacks and all these really, really good teams. So Oregon,
you want to at least get to a point where they're playing in a highly competitive game in a dome to determine who is going to get to go play in the dome.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we keep kind of edging around the playoff world a little bit here, and let's go to Florida State at Florida. This is a rivalry game. Florida State is on the road without Jordan Travis, 11-0 and 8-0. I think if you're a general fan who doesn't root for chaos, you're one Florida State loss away from clearing it up.
Pretty much.
The question is, do you think that Florida State is going to lose?
All the focus is on tape. Is it Rodemaker?
Yeah, Rodemaker.
Roland Gardner. Focus is on him.
Henry Roland Gardner.
Yes, going on the road to the swamp in his first career start. Good luck, kid. And people are just sort of overlooking that Florida is also having their backup quarterback, Max Brown, play. And Graham Mertz has been pretty good the last month. He's played pretty good football. So losing him is a very real thing for Florida. I think this number would be much, much lower if Florida had Graham Mertz to play, but they don't. So ultimately, I think this is a game that Florida State wins. I think it gets very nervy. I mean, going on the road with your backup quarterback, despite the fact that Florida State is as good as
and not just on the road, like this is as on the road as you can get. Yeah,
in the swamp. And I think that I'll be interested to see, because you have a Florida team here playing for a bowl game, which, okay, say what you will, but they're playing for a bowl game.
Still want to play for a bowl game, yeah.
Ruining their rival's season and at home.
And a highly motivated coach to flip the script a little bit.
you're not going to get like an A+ swamp crowd, but you're going to get a pretty good swamp crowd, and this will be a tough spot for Florida State, but I think they can survive this. But I like Florida in the points here.
I think I'd probably buy it up to 7.5 and make it a 2-possession game and ride with Florida here. But I think Florida State wins a close one.
Yeah.
But this is the key. Like if you go read, we are actually in a position where we might get chaos this year. Mm-hmm. People root for it all the time. I don't understand the notion of doing that. I guess if people are relieved or want to expose a system that they deem to be flawed, then you root for something to happen that forces it to change.
Yeah, the system's already changing though.
We're not even at the point though where it would be unlikely that it happens. I think that if chalk holds, we're going to be put in a situation. Now it might just end up being that there'll be 4 undefeated teams and the committee will have an easy day that day. Mm-hmm. But if Florida State loses, it kind of clears up a little bit because the Pac-12 champion will likely be Oregon, and then I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Washington will win twice, but Florida State is a roadblock to ease because it takes up a spot during a controversial time in which people might think they deserve one, even if they're undefeated. By the way, wholeheartedly agreed with your column, Dave. If you are undefeated, I don't care if you have Pee Wee Herman coming out there for your quarterback position. The games matter. They went undefeated. They're playing, and I covered a team that won a championship with their third-string quarterback. So they're going. If you're a team that's on the fence and wants them out, you're not going to get your wish. That's not the way it works. Undefeated Florida State gets in. Okay. To your favorite team in the entire country, not Texas Tech. Alabama going on the road, 10-1, 7-0 in the SEC, laying 14.5 against the Auburn team that just suffered one of the worst losses in program history. Could this get Iron Bowl squirrely, or do you think Alabama just rolls tide?
Okie doke coming here, Ari. The okie doke is coming here for 2 reasons. One, there is no such thing as a calm Iron Bowl crowd. I don't know if you saw Nick Saban was calling out. That was good, Ari. Did you see that Nick Saban was calling out Miss Terry for
rat poison 2 weeks ago? Yeah,
looking ahead to Auburn. That game was going to be really tough. Here's the thing with Auburn.
Could you imagine laying in bed next to your wife and like accusing her of looking ahead? Like my wife was like, "What are we going to do for Christmas celebration this year?" And I said, "You're looking ahead. That's rat poison for Thanksgiving. Like we got to focus on.
We got to execute. We got the plan.
We got 15 Wassermans coming to my house. You're worried about Christmas?
We got about a dozen people coming to the Oven household this week. It's going to be tough. But no, I think
did you pre-bake or did you pre-order your food?
No, we're making for you. So the turkey was the only issue. I put this out to the Hive Mind on Twitter. So I didn't want to do the whole turkey thing. I've never been responsible for a full turkey. So I didn't want to do the whole thing. My smoker is currently on the injury list. It's day to day with a messed up igniter. And it's rainy, it's cold. I don't smoke as much in the fall. I can't do the fall Saturdays I'm watching college football.
You blaze more in the summer?
Yeah, yes, definitely. in the summer, I'll use it a lot more. But anyway, we may have to be in a replacement situation. We got to figure this out. But anyway, my wife doesn't really like smoked turkey, so I ended up buying a cooked one that you have to put in the oven for 3 hours. But when we're making some of the stuff tomorrow, and then some of the family is bringing other stuff. So anyway. All that to say, I think we've figured out the turkey situation. It's not going to be the whole, got to do everything, but, regardless. Anyway, this is going to be nervy because I think the biggest pratfall, Ari, in lines and all this stuff is the overreaction, right? And everyone thinks, oh, Auburn, they lost to New Mexico State, who's a good team, it should be noted, last week.
Don't make excuses.
This is the same Auburn team that beat an Arkansas team in Fayetteville 48-10 2 weeks ago. Auburn is okay. They're not very good, but they're not that bad. And this is a huge game. This is way too many points. Okie doke coming here. Auburn pushes them. I think Alabama gets the job done here, but on the road at Auburn, I think people just are dismissing Auburn because of last week and laughing in their faces. And don't get me wrong, that was very embarrassing, but I think you're going to get a very motivated Auburn team and a team that is more competent than people think they are.
I thought it was crazy to fire Gus Malzahn when they did.
Did you really, Ari?
Well,
Okay,
here's the reason. Let me tell you the reason.
No.
I got to tell you the reason before you disagree with me.
No, I'm going to disagree with you right now, Ari. You cannot get mad at me for saying that it's insane that Ohio State wants to talk about firing Ryan Day for losing to Michigan when they were right on the precipice of a national title, and then sit here at Auburn, which
You're
has
going to feel foolish in a second,
which has won 2 national titles, and then roll your eyes at them firing a guy who keeps losing 4 games every year.
The reason why I think it was a little nuts is that Gus Malzahn harbored one important skill set for Auburn.
So does their current coach, Ari. So does
his
their current
inexplicable ability to continually and regularly beat Alabama in years in which Alabama is great.
This is why they hired. That's like 30% of why they hired you.
Here, but rivalry games matter more than regular games. Now, that doesn't mean that you can lose 4 to crappy teams, and I understand why they got rid of Gus Malzahn, but they paid him the second highest buyout now in the history of college football. And you better make damn sure that you find somebody that can beat Alabama with semi-regularity. And we're going to find out whether or not Hugh Freeze's program is up to the task of at least keeping this one competitive. I'm not going to jump to conclusions here and say Freeze was a miss if they lose, but you fired a coach that has already illustrated an ability to do what is impossible for everybody else, and that is to beat Alabama. And I'm not saying it's every year or every other year, but certainly regular enough and in inexplicable ways where it's like, you better think long and hard about what you're doing here before you make that decision. So we'll see. I don't know what the program would look like if they didn't hire Brian Harsin directly after, because Brian Harsin just torpedoed the roster.
Yeah.
But like,
well, you brought in a guy in the SEC who did not understand SEC recruiting in any way.
I'm still not sure.
And he still almost beat Alabama. I think that was 2 years ago. That was a crazy game. The Karate Kid game, of which I tried to pry the Alabama players into explaining the Karate Kid. I still never got an explanation for that. That seemed to, it was like a bright shooting star where it was ever present in Alabama games for like one off season or one like postseason, and then we didn't see it ever again. But
yeah. So listen, here's the other factor of this game, and then we're going to move on. And if you're listening, we will get to Ohio State, Michigan. We're saving it maybe for later in the show because it's a listening tactic.
We might not talk about it at all, Ari.
Wouldn't it be crazy if it was like, thank you for joining us? Yeah. We'll get you guys after the game. Or just give do it in the speed round at the end. It's like Ohio State, Michigan. Who do you got? Like, I'll take Ohio State or Michigan. Are we sure that Alabama's warts are 100% healed and gone?
No,
because
I'm not.
Sometimes if they do have warts that we have forgotten about while they've played awesome in other games, they tend to kind of rear their ugly heads in rivalry situations where you're on the road in the other team. There's a reason why Miss Terry was up at night in bed thinking about this. Like, I think, and I don't think I would ever bet this in real life because it would just be a miserable experience. But if I have to pick it on the show, I think I'm taking the points here. Yeah.
Smart man, Ari. Smart man. You might understand the SEC after all, Ari, even though you just
I covered an SEC team for 10 years.
It's true.
You're the one acting like you don't understand the SEC when you're like freaking out about Ryan Day. Like,
we had this argument in the offseason. I'm not saying that fans should be okay with losing to Michigan. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just suggesting that firing a guy who came within a field goal of a national championship is maybe not the fix. That's all I'm saying.
I agree with that rational take. Now, what about the other 12 minutes? But that's not what you said for 12 minutes.
Yes, it is. I have all these angry Ohio State fans hitting me up being like, I don't understand how you don't understand that the Michigan game means more. I get it. Believe me, I get it. I'm just saying that you're focusing too much on the Michigan game and not on, being that close to winning a national championship.
The last time Ohio State fired a very, very good head coach because he couldn't win the Michigan game, the rivalry flipped and Ohio State became a national power. It's just, that is out there. But we'll get to that game in a little bit. Let's do a few more. Egg Bowl. Ole Miss 9-2, 5-2 in the SEC, laying 10.5 on the road at Mississippi State, who is playing for bowl eligibility at 5-6. They are 1-6 in the SEC. The over/under is 55.5. And this game is on Thanksgiving evening.
I have a quick Thanksgiving question for you, Ari.
Yes, sir.
In my family, we always did Thanksgiving like a late-ish lunch, 1:30, 2 o'clock. Give enough time to prep in the morning, but it's still lunch. I have married into a family that does Thanksgiving dinner at like 6 p.m.
That's bizarre.
Thank you. Thank you, Ari.
Yeah.
Listen, the first
Thanksgiving isn't a day where meals are identified. It's just you eat all day. But like the actual Thanksgiving meal, we're in Texas, and we are correlating Thanksgiving meal around the beginning of the Dallas Cowboy game, which I think is at 3 or 3:30.
Yeah, the second game. You're cooking and getting ready.
Cooking and eating appetizers. You're getting your little You watch the Lions are awesome this year.
They're good this year. Well, they might find a way to lose this game, but anyway, regardless.
It's Thanksgiving. What do you do all day then?
Just like hang out and then start listen. This is an argument we had in my household like 3 years ago, and I've ceded to it is what it is at this point. It's
bizarre.
Insane. I don't like it. But regardless,
you're supposed to eat till you're full and then hit the leftovers like at 11 p.m. and then go to bed like a savage. That's what you're supposed to do.
My family, they're a early sleeping people. I'm not particularly. But so when we would be back in Arkansas, I would traditionally watch either Texas or Texas A&M or Ole Miss and Mississippi State, and much of the household was asleep by the time this was like at halftime. We're going to be like eating, so I'll have to I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch a ton of this. But that said,
I mean, I don't know about you. I'm like full before the meal starts because I'm eating the charcuterie and or whatever, or what is that? They got the mushroom caps and all the things that they put out. You got the crackers.
Yeah, not a charcuterie guy.
I don't know if it's charcuterie was the right thing. I don't know. We have there's food out constantly. My mother-in-law she takes 2 pieces of asparagus and puts cream cheese in it and then wraps it in white bread and then bakes it. That might sound weird to you. It is insane.
I like all of those things. I'm sure it's good, but why is there not like a bacon or ham involved in that?
Jews. We're Jews.
Oh yeah. My bad.
And it's not that we keep kosher. It's just like ham isn't been a staple in our house. And like I grew up in a house where my mother never cooked us bacon once because Jews don't buy bacon.
Yeah.
I like bacon, but
yeah. This game though, Ari,
you're doing a podcast with a Jew, man. It is what it is, you know.
It is what it is. I do have some asparagus in the fridge still left over from a meal last week.
I mean, honestly, you don't really taste the asparagus. It's just like
I like
buttered white bread with cream cheese with a little crunch to it is a really. I've never had anything like that before, but it's the best thing that happened.
Dish.
I married into that.
I'd like to know the genesis of that dish. That's a weird, it's good. I think it'd be.
We need an oral history of where she came up with it.
But that's a very weird dish. I'm trying to think about.
It's bizarre.
How you would even do that. It's very weird. I'm sure it is good though. I would probably get some bacon in the mix somewhere there. This is a weird rivalry, Ari. I think you've seen enough Egg Bowls. The P game, in which both coaches got fired, was a classic. Our colleagues, Max Olson and Bruce Feldman, wrote about the nuclear bomb of coaching changes that came from that Egg Bowl game. Shout out to Elijah Moore, excuse me. But man, Mississippi State has perhaps never before seen levels of juice in this rivalry. I know you're playing for bowl eligibility, but your coach is fired.
Which has got to be like one of the most savage firings in the history of college football, too. Right?
Not really. It's a
I don't know, man. They didn't even get him a whole year, and he took over for a man who passed away.
I get it. I agree. I actually agree with the firing. I think you have a guy who your team believes
whether or not you agree with it doesn't change whether it was savage or not.
It's not savage. He was an interim coach without the interim tag. That's what it was. Sorry. He has a $4 million buyout with an offset. In the SEC, that's like you're basically coaching for free.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he took them from a very good team, competent team. I mean, Mississippi State was getting punked a lot this year. I mean, there weren't like name your number games. They weren't like Colorado 2022, but they were. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And you just can't have that. And also, you have a new AD, Zach Selman, who didn't hire him. So
let me flip this a little bit. If Ole Miss wins and they're 10-2 with a rivalry win and 6-2 in the SEC, is that Lane Kiffin getting Ole Miss to its ceiling?
Pretty close.
Like, does that make him a hot commodity elsewhere? I feel like one of the most underrated things in college football is, can you hire a coach that got his previous team to its ceiling? Like, that to me is like you never ever.
Well, that's why you see Lane complaining a little bit about the recruiting and the collective situation, and I don't think he'd make. I don't think him and A&M would be a great marriage. But if it get to that point, and if that gets real, I think it's why Lane would listen. You know, I think he was skeptical, and there are some lifestyle reasons for not taking the Auburn job as well. But A&M is different than Auburn. It just is. You know, Auburn, you're always going to be playing uphill, and Auburn has done a great job of getting to its ceiling, which apparently is winning a national title. But it's been very hard to sustain that. Yeah, and it's been very hard to sustain that.
Well, that's why it's been Jekyll and Hyde with them all those years.
Yeah,
you get these. I mean, I think that like the national championship seasons are the bigger exception than the bad seasons. Like, they shouldn't be great.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a weird marriage in a lot of ways, but I could see it being attractive for that reason, is that it's tough to see Ole Miss getting a lot better than this. But I do think juiceless Mississippi State here, I think Ole Miss wins this game and wins it big. As much as I would love to see an insane Thanksgiving night Egg Bowl, I suspect this will be not that entertaining of a football game.
But we might get some Thanksgiving night grab ass or funny celebrations or something, because the game always seems to be off the reservation crazy.
Yes, usually.
I think that this is an easy pick here. I'm going to go Ole Miss minus 10.5, but don't rule out something bizarre happening in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think here, Dave. Do we do it?
Let's do it.
No, one more.
Okay.
Because this one's more important. The University of Arizona.
Nice, sorry.
I love this.
If you aren't on YouTube, Ari just revealed himself of wearing a hoodie from his alma mater with the cactus. It's a great logo.
The best logo that they've ever had, and I just think it's a cool hoodie.
Shout out to Damon Starr.
By the way, super biased, by the way. Arizona to the moon. To the moon. Arizona's playing ASU. They're laying 11.5. I remember 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, when they lost like 78-0 or something. I don't know. It was like insane.
That was basically the game that got someone out of there, if I recall.
Yes. Is this the last game of the Jed Fish era at Arizona?
Yeah, but that's okay.
That's sad.
Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.
What happened? They went 9-3.
The Jed Fish era, yes.
Yeah, no, I know, but it didn't happen to its full extent yet.
When's the last time Arizona won 9 games? They've won a BCS bowl. Did they win more than 9 games?
In the Khalil Tate years, they went to a BCS game.
Did they win 9 games that year?
I think they had to have. Yeah,
maybe. I remember them being.
I don't know enough about Arizona to remember. I just remember they were really fun to watch.
Khalil Tate is still on the short list of most fun college football players. Like, him and Rich Rod was like,
that is a don't be sad that it's over, smile that it happened moment, because that was like a flash in the pan. Yeah. And I don't know. I think he was ruined later on in his career, but he was.
We won't get to that. I don't want to think about them ruining Khalil Tate. I still am kind of mad about that.
They had 10 wins in 2014.
Okay. So you can get to that again. You win this game, you win a bowl game. Ari, how did you feel about Arizona celebrating a Pac-12 South title this week? You like it?
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of with them on this. I'm okay with it. I don't love it, but
what's the pros and cons?
Well, don't put up a banner. Please don't put up a banner. You can't do that. You can acknowledge that you did something that in most years would be a thing. You'd be playing for a Pac-12 title. You'd be playing Washington. Oregon would be. They'd need a lot of help to get in the playoff, and you'd be playing spoiler for.
How is this any different than what UCF did?
What What are you talking about, Ari? No,
I just wanted to trigger you. I'm sorry.
you succeeded. I almost lost it.
Sometimes people just want to watch the word burn. You went nuts. I win.
I could not believe
it's kind of corny, but like let them have fun. I don't know.
I like them acknowledging it. Just don't put up a banner or anything. You can't do that.
But like mathematically,
yeah.
Are they still alive here? Like if Oregon loses, does Arizona go? Because Arizona and Oregon didn't play, so I don't know what the tiebreaker is. Like if Oregon ends up losing to Oregon State, I think Arizona might be in the Pac-12 championship game.
No, it's set.
It is
like 90. Yeah, I'm like 90% sure it's set.
Somebody was tweeting at me earlier that Arizona has a backdoor channel to get in.
Maybe maybe I'm not a tiebreaker guy. We all have to be tiebreaker guys in the future.
Well, I don't know what the tiebreaker is because they didn't play each other.
Yeah,
they both have 2 losses in the Pac-12. And
tiebreakers terrible. Exactly, that's what makes terrible.
But Arizona and they both lost to Washington, so I don't know what the.
Yeah, I can't figure out Arizona State this year. Ari, they like half the time they don't even show up. No,
here's a good way to handle it.
Okay.
They're a team that has no good players that plays inexplicably hard for their new head coach who's very passionate and wants to turn the place around. And that sometimes means that passion and energy and buying in turns into a solid 4 quarters of football, and then sometimes it's a disaster. And that's what you get when you don't have very good players. So, like, I mean, who's their quarterback?
Well, Rashada was warming up last week. Did Bourget play? I didn't watch the game.
Do you know that Bourget is my best friend from one of my best friends from high school's nephew?
Interesting. You got some weird Arizona ties. I feel like Arizona is not unlike my home state of Arkansas, in which everyone's sort of connected to everyone at some point.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case because everybody in Arizona is from somewhere else, but it was just kind of funny because I remember during Bourget's recruitment, he was like texting me like, "Hey, you should write about him and stuff."
Did you?
As a good. No, I didn't. I believe he was a 2-star athlete, so I mean, I'm not a magic man, but it is.
I would like to have seen an Arizona State team with a healthy Rashada because when he's played, he's made some throws where you're just like, okay. Like this dude's got something. I
don't know that he would have been the difference for this team, but maybe
he would have made them. He would have made them fun. He would have grown up a little bit. He would have made them a little bit feistier. I like Scatabo. He's a fun player. But Arizona, I just think they're going to be too tough to defend here. 11 is not that many points, even on the road. I don't know what the crowd's going to be like for this one. You got Thanksgiving. Arizona State doesn't have a lot of juice right now. So I'll take Arizona here.
Are you
I'll lay the points?
Poo-pooing on the passion that comes along with a duel in the desert? Like, is that what I'm hearing right now?
That's what you're hearing.
It's the greatest rivalry in college football.
The Territorial Cup, I know. Yeah.
Arizona would have the tiebreaker over Oregon State, so I guess it is set. Cam just looked that up. I don't know over Oregon State, so that means it's set then.
I don't know.
Because who wins the tiebreaker between Oregon and Arizona is the question. I don't know. Arizona and Oregon didn't play, and I don't know what the secondary tiebreaker is. But
Oregon's not losing at home to Oregon State. We'll cross that bridge when we.
Can you stop like downplaying my alma mater's chances of being great? Like are you like afraid of them getting hot at the right time?
They're hot already. They've won like 7 games in a row.
Don't let Arizona get hot. Okay, we've got 2. Let's just quickly touch on Washington and Washington State before we get into the show's finale, which is Washington State 5-6, 2-6 have fallen off significantly since they kicked the crap out of Arizona. Washington, obviously 11-0, 8-0. Apple Cup. This isn't a bedlam situation where you're getting a rivalry for the last time. They have extended it for 5 more years. We're going to keep getting it.
Applause for the ADs, by the way.
Yeah,
it can be done. Iowa and Iowa State do it. Florida State do it. Clemson, South Carolina do it. Georgia Tech do it. It can be done. Do this. Do not let these in-state rivalries die.
Sorry, I was typing to our producer. I don't see how this game is anything other than a Washington easy win, and then that solidify. I honestly am rooting for Washington. I'm rooting for Oregon. I want that Pac-12 game to be everything that it can be, especially considering the fact that I'm going to it. I don't see a route, especially considering the fact that it's at Washington in Seattle, where this game is close enough to get nervy.
Washington State's been a weird team to figure this year. Washington's had some weird performances. This seems like too many points to me, even on the road. I don't want to overreact to last week. I think Colorado is a broken football team at the moment, an injured football team. It should also be noted. But I think Cam Ward is feisty enough to make some plays here, and I don't love Washington's defense. It's part of the reason why I think Oregon's a better team. So for a team that struggles defensively in a rivalry game, 17 points, that's too many. It's too many. Give me the Cougs. Give me the Cougs.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know. I guess going into, can you have a hangover before conference championships? Like, what is not a hangover? A look ahead? Rat poison?
Probably not in a rivalry game. And your last rivalry game as conference mates? Probably not.
Okay, let's just get to it, guys. Bum, bum, bum. The Ohio State-Michigan game.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
Is this bigger than 2006, Ari?
2006, Bo Schembechler died like the day before the game started.
Yeah.
But in 2006, Ohio State was wire-to-wire number one and beat number twos twice that year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would say bigger. Here's the thing I said on Ralph's show, and the thing that I think is true. In sports, we have rivalries. And in these rivalries, the fans hate each other. But I do think it's rather rare for the coaches to hate each other.
And it happens. TCU Baylor is about as good as it gets.
I can't recall any other instance where a head coach of one team in the rivalry undermined the entire resume of the other coach that is in the rivalry publicly, the way that Jim Harbaugh did 2 years ago. Like, I don't think there's anything coming back from the third base comment that he made. I think Ryan Day despises Jim Harbaugh, and I think Jim Harbaugh and people in Michigan like attribute everything that's going on to Michigan to Ohio State because of some weird reporting that went on about like where the genesis of this was.
I also don't care about that, just for the record.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, you're asking me about the rivalry. I'm just saying, like, they're going into this game with animosity on both sides, to the likes of which we don't see in sports.
Yeah, this will be as
even if you go back,
even if you
go back in time to the 10-year war between Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler, they were like secretly really close and good friends. You know, like they had a lot of respect for each other. I don't think that Ryan Day respects Harbaugh, and I don't think Harbaugh respects Ryan Day. Mm-hmm. So you have that. You have the Spygate thing. You have the fact that Jim Harbaugh's not there. You have the Big Ten championship on the line and a playoff line, not to mention that Ohio State is in desperation mode. They can't lose 3 in a row to Michigan, especially considering the fact of everything that's going on here, like the compelling storylines that go along with this in combination with the animosity that exists between the two programs is peak college football rivalry nirvana, is it not?
I cannot wait for this game, Ari. Like I'm like literally at different points in every day, Sunday, Monday, today's Tuesday. I think about it this morning. I have thought to myself, I'm so excited for this game. It's so awesome. I think
like, that you can make the case that this is peak college football in its like purest form.
It's got everything. 2 legitimately great teams. The hilarity of the Connor Stallions sideshow, the actual malice and like issue of the cheating that happened, the Michigan trying to validate itself in that, hey, we didn't thrive the last 2 years because we cheated. Ohio State trying to get the cheaters out of the playoff discussion and then also beat a rival. And then also Jim Harbaugh, like you said, is not there to witness it. It really is like the levels upon levels upon levels upon levels of this game. I mean, I cannot wait to watch this game.
And Ralph asked me on the AP show that I was doing before this, what's the most compelling storyline that could come out of the game? Like, who wins to make it the most compelling? And I had a hard time answering that.
Yeah, too. I think every single option is almost equally compelling. A close Ohio State loss, a close Michigan State loss, or Michigan loss, a blowout on either side would be I I feel like maybe a Michigan blowout. Well, I don't know. The Michigan blowout would result in a level of gloating and told you so-ness that I don't think college football has ever seen. I like every outcome is fascinating and compelling, and I just
because like
I can't wait.
everybody's so hyper focused on Michigan and what they may or may not have done
Mm-hmm.
that we're forgetting that if they end up winning the game, that might like cool the Jets a little bit on the Spygate thing. But then Ryan Day is in a personal inferno,
Yeah.
in the embodiment of hell.
Mm-hmm.
And then if Ohio State beats the crap out of Michigan, then all of a sudden you're ramped up on what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
But if Michigan wins, then Michigan goes into the playoff with the Spygate stuff hanging over their head still, and it continues. And if Ohio State wins, then what happens to Jim Harbaugh after that? Like they're like both angles. It's like back and forth. Who's going to win? Who's going to, and what are the consequences of the loss going to mean? So I'm going to say this here, Dave, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on the off the field stuff here. We've talked a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself having the hardest time I've ever had picking a game because there are a lot of things in this game that I believe to be unquantifiable.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the last 2 years meant. I have no idea whether Ohio State coach Ryan Day has a John Cooper Michigan problem or if it was a result of having an unfair disadvantage. I don't know how great JJ McCarthy is going to be in a moment where he might need to be. I don't know if Kyle McCord is ready for this. I don't know how much of an
On the
impact
road,
Jim
it might
Harbaugh
know.
not being there is. I don't know all the things that have come into play. I don't know how much to read into the Maryland game. I have no freaking clue. And like I know on podcasts we're supposed to give our best pick and we're supposed to be the experts. Buddy, I don't know if it's bad podcasting. I literally don't know what's going to happen.
I do. My lock of the week is Ohio State, Michigan under 45.5.
Is that your lock of the week?
That's my lock of the week, officially. My lock of the week is under 45.5. Listen,
I do, no, but we're talking about who's going to win, but that's funny. That's a funny segue.
Now, who's going to win? I'm with you, Ari. I don't know. I really don't know. I think this will come down. This will be a close game. Most of the first 2 months of the season, I was pretty certain we are on the railroad tracks to another Ohio State beatdown. And then I've watched the last month. Ohio State's looked pretty good. Michigan has looked shaky. And as we noted with Austin Meek on our Sunday sound off, weighed down by all of this. Does that go away when you can just play between the lines? How much does it matter that your head coach is not there, although he is prepping you for the week? What does Sharon Moore's decision-making look like in a game like this? Can you just coach football? Or are you thinking about how magnified every decision that you make, every fourth down, every field goal, every play call? How much does that? I don't know. But I know that I can't wait to watch this game. I mean, you're right, Ari. This is college football at its absolute best.
First time all year where we are going live no matter what happens.
Yes.
Like that's where we're at with this.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan 49, Ohio State 3, Ohio State 49, Michigan 3, Ohio State 17, Michigan 16, Michigan 17, Ohio State 16. It is banana land. And I cannot wait to watch it. And I'm very interested in the notion that, Michigan is kind of trying to play a game for its reputation a little bit.
Yeah.
Of like, if you win the game, then does it undermine the entire thing that we've been talking about for the past month? Or if they win the game, is their national championship run tainted? I think all of these things that are coming into play here are all fascinating. And like the columns are going to be flowing, I think, next week.
I think if Ohio State wins this game by double digits, which I think is possible,
that's the worst case scenario for Michigan, obviously.
Yeah, because I think it calls into question everything that we've seen the last
and everything they've done the last 2 years. Yeah.
I don't think that invalidate is a fair word, but I think it will be viewed differently. It just will.
Yeah. So like the stakes, I think, are higher for Michigan. And I think
they're pretty high for everybody. I mean,
I know they're high for
like Ohio State may have to hit that giant reset button on their entire program, which again,
but not giant enough to talk about the head coach.
Did
you catch yourself there, Dave?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I think that Austin actually hit on a very interesting point in all of this, which is that Ohio State is much more, it would seem, on paper. A lot can happen in an offseason. Something I hadn't really thought about, which is that Ohio State is much more sustainable to me. Michigan's program is going to be in a weird spot. You're losing a ton of NFL talent. You're probably, going to be looking for a new coach after this season. I would bet pretty good money on that. And if you lose this game and you don't change anything, if you're Ohio State, you keep hoping Kyle McCord gets more experience. You keep all your schemes. You know what I think happens next year, Ari? I think Ohio State beats Michigan. I think they're a playoff team, and they'll be in the
everyone's a playoff team next year.
Okay.
Don't say playoff team like it's an accomplishment anymore.
I'm going to stop.
You got to teach yourself that.
You're actually right, Ari. I'm going to stop using that phrase. Well, for like some teams, I think it's a compliment.
Yes.
But for Ohio State, it's not a compliment.
For Penn State, it's a compliment, which is the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okay.
But you're a national title contender. And I get all of those things. And I
pointed the camera. Don't say that anymore.
I just think Ohio State, I'm not going to say it's crazy because it's not crazy. I think ill-advised if you lose this game.
I'm not saying
blow it up.
I'm not saying that he should be fired if they lose. I think that
you're strongly intimating.
No. I'm not saying. I don't know that I believe that he should be fired. I take exception to your inability to understand why it would be a discussion point.
I get that it's a discussion point. I'm discussing it. I'm saying don't do it. I'm saying
they probably won't.
Other stuff does matter. Well, if Ohio State is as SEC as you say, they probably will.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you see like the A&M rumor mill on Twitter right now is like pumping Ryan Day to College Station really hard.
Yeah, that's
and I find that to be really funny.
I think I would consider it if I was Ryan Day, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't actually do that. So
if Ryan Day loses a third one, I would go.
Does A&M want you?
This is a fake scenario. He's not going there. But if A&M backed up the Brinks truck after they lost to Michigan for the third time and said, hey, you can hit reset on your thing. We'll pay you a king's ransom, and you can take over a program that has all the NIL and resources that you could possibly need to be good. I think that the amount of money that would be at play there, plus the fact that you would go into the following year with a beat Michigan or you're gone mentality, I think that like the reset button of like you get to start from square one and get 3 years at a new place that's paying you a boatload of money is a nice way to stay employed. That said, if Ryan Day beats Michigan on Saturday, like I think that you should write like an apology letter for doubting him if you're an Ohio State fan. Because like, listen, we talked about how important rivalry games are. Stacking big rivalry games, like the bigger instances of the rivalry, I think equates to more cachet. Does that make sense? Like beating Michigan this year is a bigger feather in his cap than beating them next year, or it would have been beating them 2 years ago.
I agree.
If you win if you win the biggest editions of the already big rivalry, like it's possible that Ryan Day just might have gotten a bad deal here when it comes to like facing the best version. Like Urban Meyer beat the crap out of Michigan. Urban Meyer didn't play Michigan teams that were nearly as good as the 3 that Ryan Day's had to.
Yes.
And then on top of it, we don't know if they had drones at the practice field. So like it's a very complex situation, but if Ohio State wins this football game, I think Ryan Day probably has a clean ticket to be Ohio State's coach for the next 5+ years for a long time.
Yeah. I'm very curious in what Michigan decides to do. I would get, if Harbaugh leaves, which that if is shrinking by the day, I think I would understand the continuity and maybe go with Sharon Moore, but I think a splashy hire would be interesting. And a reboot, I think there has to be a toughness there. I think Harbaugh just made so much sense for Michigan in so many ways, but it's just an interesting spot for both programs. And I think what we're talking around, Ari, is that this game is the perfect marriage of so many things that happen inside the white lines affecting so many things that happen outside the white lines, perception,
and so many things
jobs
outside of the white lines that might be impacting the things inside the white lines. And I'm not even talking about spying. I'm talking about Ryan Day's temperament as a coach. Ohio State had a stark talent advantage, and a lot of the losses that they had in the 90s when John Cooper was the head coach, and they lost games because their coach got tight and didn't know how to prepare for the game without winding his team up. And then all of a sudden you're down 7-3 in the first quarter, and that old familiar feeling starts creeping back up of it's happening again. Then you start playing tighter, and you know what happens? You spontaneously combust and you lose. And it's like if Ryan Day has that disaster trait to him where he treats this game differently or isn't loose or isn't confident or whatever personality trait that a coach takes on during the week that is contagious to his team, that is a cancer that can't exist as Ohio State's coach. And that's the problem. It's not one game or how much, how close you were to winning a national championship. You can't have a coach that doesn't operate well in the rivalry. And that's the discussion point. So I think this is the biggest game of Ryan Day's career, and I think you can make the case it might be even bigger to him personally than the national championship game he played in during COVID. Do you think that you're like giving me a head nod? They got their ass kicked and no one cared. It was just what happened. Alabama was great.
Yeah.
They lost to an Alabama team that kicked their ass. There was no discussion point.
I think you do bring up.
What do you think losing the national championship game is going to have any?
I think you do.
The personal implications of this for him.
I think you do bring up a interesting point because the things that you talk about, Ari, where he's just great. He gets tight and these issues happen or they're losing these games. I don't believe any of that stuff happened to Ryan Day the last 2 years. I think they played a team that was better on the line of scrimmage. They got pushed around both years, and you have to build around that. And I think the point that you made, which is interesting.
That's not organic, though, because it happens over time gradually.
I know.
You lose one, lose two, then all of a sudden, you don't think that he's wound up like a top this week? You think he's going to enjoy his Thanksgiving lunch?
Probably. It's good food. If you get enough sweet potato casserole. And
he needs the tryptophan to kind of take a relaxation. He needs an afternoon nap. But you don't think this guy is at the end of his rope right now?
Somewhat, but I think that it has to matter. It has to matter that Urban Meyer went toe to toe with Brady Hoke, and was he still there?
Did Urban never lost to Michigan?
I know that. That's my point, though. That's my point. He went toe to toe with Brady Hoke, and was he there at Rich Rod at the end of Rich Rod? I
can't recall. I mean,
close.
the first editions of the game were tough, but he was there. I think he was four. No, he was. What was his? He was 7-0 against Michigan.
Yes,
and I think that he gave Harbaugh his first 5 losses. Harbaugh was 0-5 against him, and I think that the first 2 were against Hoke.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so probably not when Rich Rod was there. So I think that matters to some degree. And I think that the Michigan teams, like you said, I'd be curious to see Urban's teams go up against some of these Michigan teams. Do we really think that the results would have been the same? At some point, you have to recognize that these games don't happen in a vacuum. Other teams change. Other teams improve. And the challenge changes. It doesn't mean Ryan Day is terrible, or we got to get rid of this guy, or we'll never be great with this guy, or he gets too wound up.
I think that the problem that Ohio State fans are having, and you're like, you don't understand it. It drives me insane.
I do understand it, but I'm saying it's perception.
Is that Ohio State has been a better football team than Michigan the last 2 years and has gotten its ass kicked. What don't you understand about that?
I do understand that.
Okay, I don't. It's very simple.
That sometimes perception is reality, and in this case, perception is not reality. The perception is that Ryan Day has not won this game. His team's gotten pushed around, bullied in this game 2 years in a row, and that means that we have to make a change. And Ryan Day is not that guy. And I'm telling you that I'm not sure there are that many coaches who you could hire that would have a better result and make Ohio State a better program than Ryan Day has done to Ohio State. I get all the questions. They're all fair.
But the line between better program and is very thin when you look at it from like the macro perspective. But when you lose the rivalry game, they aren't the best program in the Big Ten East anymore, and that is a huge Mediterranean Sea gap.
But they will be next year. They will be next year.
They lost their crown as the best program in the Big Ten.
And they're going to get it back next year.
One game does.
Yeah, and they're going to get it back next year.
I don't know, man. 7-5 Michigan teams have beaten Ohio State historically all the time. It happened throughout John Cooper's tenure. I'm just saying, it's not next year they're going to win, no problem. Like, that's not the way this works.
But you're going to be great next year, and Michigan is probably going to take a step back.
So who do you think is going to win?
Like, my head says probably Ohio State. My gut says Michigan, with all that's at stake here at home. That's going to be tough to win that game. I don't know. I guess I'm going to take Michigan with the points because it's over 3.5. I mean, take Ohio State with 9 points because it's over 3.5. I would probably go. I think I'd probably go Ohio State money line maybe, and the under is still my lock of the week though. This is going to be a game with not a lot of points.
I don't know. I'm not going to make a pick. I don't know. If I had to make a pick, I would pick Michigan because they've earned that. I think they've earned it. Until Ohio State wins again, I'm not going to pick them because all the reasons why I would want to pick Ohio State this year are the same things that existed the last 2 years and weren't good enough. And now they're going on the road and they're playing a highly motivated team that's trying to win the Big Ten and make the playoff, again, for the third consecutive year. I think Ohio State is probably a more talented and probably as good or not better of a football team. With dynamic athletes that can break open a game like this. But I can't in good faith pick them to win right now. I think that if I had to take a side, I'd probably take the points because having 3.5 is comforting in a game that you think is going to go under and is an I don't know scenario. But if I have to log a pick, I'm going to say Michigan wins. But that said, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to pretend like I do. So, lastly, before we go here, Dave, Arizona does have a route to the Pac-12 championship game. If Washington is clinched. If Oregon loses to Oregon State and Arizona beats ASU, Arizona is going to Vegas. So the Pac-12 South, may get it done. So
as respectfully as I can say this, Ari, that'd be pretty lame.
I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Fans think Oregon that reporters root for teams. We root for compelling.
Yeah. I don't want to see Washington, Arizona in Vegas. I'm sorry. I want to see the rematch.
Yeah.
That game was awesome. That was probably before Ohio State, Michigan. That was probably the best game of the year.
It was.
Again. I want to see it again.
And I still to this day think Dan Lanning is a G for going for it at the end of that game.
It was every decision was the right one. I'm iffy on the before half one. Every other
there are a few games that we just need to just pick a side on real quick. Tulane 10-1 on the road at UTSA, who it's one of the three unbeaten teams in the American right now.
UTSA got off to a terrible start in part because Frank Harris was hurt. Even without Zachary Franklin, Frank Harris has been on fire. Absolutely lit the world up last week in a national spotlight game. I like UTSA to pull the upset here, beat a Tulane team here and get the win and stay undefeated.
Frank Harris is really good.
He's extremely good.
What do you think about the trailer to A&M, the way he's handled the questions about it?
Not very good.
Wait, what's the acceptable way for somebody in his position to respond to, did you interview at Texas A&M?
No, it's not about responding to the question. If you're going to act indignant at the questions about, you're taking the focus off of these guys, then don't interview. Then say, wait. That's all my point is. Just say, hey, I love my time here. I'm well supported here. I love my players. We're focused on this season. Don't lie. Do not lie, coaches. Do not lie. But just say, hey, I love it here. I love my players. We're focused on making this season the best that we can make it.
I think that's easier said than done.
Well,
Don't interview.
How would you handle? No,
Did you not watch Friday Night?
No,
did you watch Friday Night Lights?
No,
they put Coach Taylor in a pressure cooker down there at UT Martin.
I do. That's a good episode.
Yeah.
TMU.
Yeah,
I'm not saying don't
yeah.
interview, Ari. I'm saying you can't interview and then act indignant when people ask you about the interview and saying you're distracting from this player. You shouldn't ask about this. That's trash. That's my only point.
Do you think
you want to act like that? I think A&M will be lucky to have him if they end up there. He's not splashy enough. I think A&M fans would probably turn their nose up at him a little bit. We have UTSA as coach. I think he would do very well there. I think you really cannot understate the importance of having all of THSCA in your back pocket. If you have not lived in Texas, covered college football in Texas, covered some recruiting in Texas, the outsized is unfair. The gigantic influence that THSCA has, the Texas High School Coaches Association, and all the high school coaches in the state, if they love you, you're going to find it much easier to recruit. If you rub them the wrong way, which Jimbo did on multiple occasions, talking to a 7-on-7 coach like very early. 7-on-7 culture in Texas, it's very, very controversial. IMG, it's very, very controversial in the state of Texas. You've got to massage those relationships because they can hurt you. Yes, that's your recruiting base. You need all the Texas coaches to love you. And I think
I got to tell you, though, Sark isn't the most popular coach in the state of Texas either.
Yeah, but he hasn't stepped in it quite as bad as Jimbo did.
I think that Texas doesn't recruit. Might be a Stars Matter topic, but I've done, and I don't know if this is fair because it's a really big state and I'm in Dallas, but I've done interviews with coaches here in the past that say they don't like the way that Sark goes about recruiting their players.
In what way?
In a way that they don't, he makes zero effort to get to know the coaches, and I think they circumvent the coaching staff of the high schools, which is common.
Yeah.
They go directly to the kid.
That's going to be tough to sustain. I'll just tell you. I think what coaches really appreciate is when you don't have players and somebody still stops by, maybe not the head coach, but somebody from the staff and just chops it up and says, hey, you're welcome to our practices. Let's coach football here and let's be about the kids.
If you have a
coaches really appreciate that.
If you have a really good player on your team that Texas wants, I would call every head coach personally if I were the Texas head coach, if a player on that team has an offer. And I don't think he's done that. So that is,
yeah.
And again, it might have just gotten to a few places that didn't occur, and he's really good at it. I'm just saying
it's hard.
There's a lot of
it as well as anybody.
It's a hard thing to do, but you have to be like, you know what? Today is February 3rd. That's a terrible day because it might be signing day. Today is February 26th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to spend my day as the head coach of Texas calling every high school coach I can get on the phone for a 5-minute conversation.
Yes.
If my team is offering a player that coach has.
I think in general you got to do that.
Yeah.
Listen,
I think
the reality of it is if you don't want to play politics, if you don't like that, and you don't think that sounds good to you, and you don't want to mess with this high school coaches, the Texas and the A&M job are not for you.
And I think that it exists in a lot of states, man.
But Texas, it's more powerful because you can't circumvent it. Like Dion dealt with this in Colorado. A lot of the Colorado coaches didn't like Dion. Well, you know what? It doesn't really matter. You don't have that many players.
Well, Texas, the thing too about Texas is that
players.
you have, it's like having to do it in 3 states. It's 3 times as big as everybody else. So if you're the head coach in Austin, you've got to own Dallas. If you're the head coach in Austin, you've got to own Houston. If you're the head coach in Dallas, you've got to own San Antonio. Mm-hmm. And then all the little towns in between that inexplicably produce amazing players. So we are really, really off course here. Sorry about that.
Texas recruiting is a fascinating.
Yeah.
You should do some reading on this. Sam Kahn has written about it. I've written about it a bunch in the past. The amount of it's a complicated landscape. 7-on-7, the high school coaches, there's 13 FBS programs in the state. It's a trip, man. It's a trip, and it is not easy to navigate for head coaches, but we'll save that conversation for now.
Why don't you already gave your lock of the week. It's Thanksgiving week, and I hope people will show me some grace. I did not give Cam my lock of the week, but you know what it is, man? And I hate to do it because the episode's going to be up
Is it the
on
losing
Wednesday.
coach of Ohio State and Michigan doesn't return?
It's
Is that your lock of the week?
Bowling Green -2 tonight, man. They are
They've been a
really, really
wagon.
good. Yeah.
Shout out to Connor Bazelak.
Yeah, Connor Bazelak is really good. But the tight end that Bowling Green has, Fannin Jr., Harold Fannin Jr., I think is a legitimate
big kid,
like NFL player, and really kind of and it was a rough loss in the they were at home last week, but it was a rough loss to Toledo in their rivalry game last week. But I think they're a really good team for what they are, and going up against Western Michigan on the road tonight, it might be a tough test, but 6-5 is not an indication of how good they are as a team, I think. So I wanted to give some, Daniel Garrett here's a Big Mac guy. I wanted to throw some, that's my lock of the week. We're going to know by the time you're listening whether or not that's the case, but Bowling Green has at least paid for 1 month of my daughter's daycare this year.
All right, well, should we hit LSU before we get to the rest of the
Yeah, go ahead. Go do the LSU game.
Listen, it's been a controversial topic somewhat. But you know what LSU is doing right now, Ari?
Campaigning for their quarterback to win the Heisman?
Hammering the pedal to the metal with Jaden Daniels. They know this season is lost. You know how you redeem a lost season, Ari? If you get a guy to New York City and maybe you win the Heisman Trophy.
Do you?
I think it helps. It helps.
Because I actually think it's the opposite. It's like, my God, you have the best player at the quarterback position in the entire country and you lost twice?
But it helps
I don't know,
in terms of legacy. You can say, hey, year 1, we won the SEC West. Year 2, we had a Heisman Trophy winner. You can still kind of control the trajectory of your season a little bit. And it should be noted, you had a Heisman Trophy winner that you pulled out of the portal. That's your guy. Props to Brian Kelly. So regardless of the narrative purposes, LSU is going to score. They're trying to score. A&M does not have the horses to score, even as bad as LSU's defense is. You're in Death Valley as well. Give me LSU. I will lay the points. If they got a chance to add a touchdown late, guess what? They're going to do it.
Yeah, they are going to do it.
They were racking it up.
He's accusing you of stat padding.
I didn't say it. Stop them if you can.
Do you have a sickos game of the week?
It is UConn versus UMass.
That was going to be mine. It can't be anything else.
If you watch this, you have problems.
Well, last week I said that, and UConn beat Sacred Heart 31-3. So,
yeah.
Listen, if you watch this and you got some shekels on it, then I'm with you. Like, I'll watch anything. I'll watch. You should see the sporting events I'm watching.
Football games.
Well, if you have an in, or you feel pretty good about, what do you mean? You should see my card every week. It's the weirdest games. None of the games I bet usually are even on TV, are on my TV when I just watch the game cast and
Ari is an
collect checks.
Plus hound over here.
Yeah, I'm over here like I watched a football game last year without a commentator. Like I was like, just like dry hacks at the But yeah, that's the Sickos game of the week. And then
my trap game, as previously mentioned, was UTSA beating Tulane. It's only a 3-point spread, so trap game might not be the strongest one. But Tulane's playing for a New Year's Six Gold Bowl, a second in a row. I think UTSA put some clamps on that plan.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good trap game. Mine might be Kentucky against Louisville. That's a rivalry game, and I know Louisville's got their trip to Charlotte locked up. They're playing a game against an SEC opponent who I think has had a pretty bad year in comparison to what people hope for.
I can't believe Kentucky's as bad as they are. It
would not surprise me if Louisville took an L going into the ACC championship game. If Kentucky
has the talent to be so much better than they are. I don't really know why they're this bad. And like you said, if they go up and beat Louisville, like they have better weapons than Louisville does, but Devin Leary kind of being the weak link has not been something that I anticipate. Like Ray Davis has been great, the receivers have been pretty good. Devin Leary has not been very good this year, and I that's been very, very surprising to me.
And you think you would have made the case that it was one of the most impactful portal acquisitions of the offseason?
Yeah, I thought Kentucky was going to have the season that Missouri has had, basically.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I pegged.
But you didn't go to college at Kentucky, so maybe you're the missing link.
That's true. Maybe I should have. Yeah.
I was thinking about you because I was I know this woman that works at our daycare who has a daughter who's like trying to break into sideline reporting and just got her first job and has a really good job. And she
Mhm.
goes, and then as like my wife and I were talking to the woman, she was kind of like listing off like as a proud mother would like the things that she's accomplished in the journalism field. And
Mhm.
she went to Mizzou for journalism school, and she like gave that like nod of like if you graduate from Mizzou's journalism school and you're a badass. And it got me thinking, like, yeah, Mizzou has got a really, and that's like half of my friends at the Athletic went there. So,
Can I
like,
can I
Colton
I have
Pouncey went there, Pete Ball
yes.
went there, you
We
went there.
have
Who else
many.
went there?
I'd have to go through the list. Basically, just throw a dart and you probably hit a Mizzou grad.
Or a
I have
Northwestern grad?
man, we don't talk about Northwestern. I have my hot. You want to know my hot Mizzou
What's
journalism
the
take?
best journalism school in the country?
All right, you're asking the wrong person. It's Missouri.
I want to know what the actual like.
The actual answer is Missouri. Here's the issue: is
It's
that
not.
like North Carolina specializes more in TV. Mizzou kind of does it all. Syracuse and Northwestern, I think people think it's a little bit better because the whole schools are slightly better at in general in terms of their academics. Missouri is mostly a state school with a very good journalism school, but it's definitely Missouri, Ari. You'll hear people argue this point, but it is absolutely Missouri. We have a number of alums. The program. Listen, here's my Mizzou journalism hot take. Speaking from obviously experience, it's extremely competitive. Like everyone who goes to the J school, like nobody goes to Missouri and is like, oh, I think I'm going to do journalism because they have a good journalism program. Like that's not if you do that, you're not going to probably make it at Mizzou. The people go to Mizzou. Like I knew I wanted to go to Mizzou like junior year of high school, basically, and like you go there because it's a great journalism school and it naturally attracts like a lot of really talented journalists. Like the people, like I learned as much working with people there as I did like in the actual classes. So it's very competitive, but it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like Alabama producing the most NFL draft
This was a
picks. People
mistake.
feel like they have to go there. Yeah.
This was a mistake. Yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry for doing that to you. I asked the Mizzou grad how great Mizzou is at journalism school. By the way, I looked it up while you were rambling. The top 25 schools in journalism in the country, and Mizzou is 7 on this list. So
Yeah,
maybe
well, I
put that
call
in
it
your
the
pipe and
question that
smoke it.
list. People like to talk about Arizona State. People like to talk about Northwestern and Syracuse, North Carolina. Those
U of A comes up a lot.
No.
Lastly, and then we're going to go. But it is Thanksgiving. I have to ask you, what is your ideal dish for Thanksgiving that you have to have as part of your event?
So I'm going to go plate here because I like turkey is a flawed meat. I think we can all agree with this. There's a reason we only eat it a couple times a year.
I eat it all the time on sandwiches. Yeah.
Well, but you can do like deli meat. You don't do the full turkey, right? Well, that's pretty rare.
We don't make full turkeys. No.
Yeah, exactly. It needs an accompaniment. And what I like to do is I like to double fist the accompaniment. I go sweet potato casserole and then the cranberry sauce and eat them with the turkey to give it a little bit of flavor diversity as I'm eating it. So like one bite is turkey and sweet potato casserole, and next bite is turkey and cranberry sauce. And then all of the other things that go with it. The stuffing is great. Mashed potatoes and gravy, great. All of these things. There's a little bit heavy on the starch, but I just push through and go with the sweet potato casserole and the mashed potatoes.
There's no such thing as heavy on the starch. I think the most important side dish that has to be on every Thanksgiving table, and the best one, is stuffing. And the reason why is because it's legitimately delicious.
It's very good.
It's synonymous with the day of Thanksgiving, and you rarely eat it at other times during the year.
Which I think is a mistake.
I think that it is. I think that stuffing and the flavor of stuffing is synonymous with the holiday itself. Yes. And macaroni and cheese is elite. I understand that mashed potatoes are elite, cornbread's elite, all the things that you might pick. But Thanksgiving is stuffing. For Dave Ubben, I'm Ari Wasserman. Enjoy your guys' holidays, and more importantly, if you're a college football fan, enjoy your rivalry weekend.
Oh, yes.
I will be live on Tuesday evening with Chris Fanini to break down the playoff reveal. We will be live again on Saturday after the Ohio State-Michigan game. So if you're listening to this in podcast form and want to take part in those live shows, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're here as a YouTube only person and you want to get our shows all week, be sure to subscribe to the podcast channel. All the links that you can be that you need to find these are in the show's description. And then lastly, be sure to sign up for The Athletic. You can get the Black Friday deal, which is $1 a month for an entire year. That is theathletic.com/Saturday. Thank you so much for listening to the latest edition of Until Saturday. Enjoy your holiday.
And bring back the turnover chain.